going to cover two topics. Since Neil's not here, the very first thing we're going to talk about is how living as a beloved son or daughter affects the way that I view authority. Because, when we're talking about sons and daughters, or fathers and sons, or fathers and daughters, we're talking about authority, right? We have to get the authority part right, and it's such a huge thing. We'll talk about this more, and especially when we go over the making of a leader material in some semester in the future. Some of you have already been through it.
Their last one.
The last one? Okay. Their last one, because it was the last one, right? We did spring, yeah. So, making of a leader, we talk about authority and the importance of authority. In fact, it's crucial. In fact, Jesus even said things like when he saw people's understanding of authority, like there's notes if you guys want to pass it around. Jesus said, when he saw a centurion who's a man in authority come, and he said, I'm a man in authority, and I'm a man under authority, and I have people under me as well. I understand how this works. Just speak the word, and it'll be done. And Jesus, and it's one of the rare times that it says that Jesus marveled. It's like, what does it take to make Jesus marvel? What does it take to impress him?
Yeah. I want to be that.
Well, that's one of the things. I understand authority. And when you understand authority, and when you're under authority, God gives you authority. And it's a whole different subject. But one of the core foundations of this is understanding your relationship with the Father. So let's turn to John 13. And this is, the last few chapters of John, really basically a very short period of time. The last evening of Jesus' life is portrayed in several chapters here. But John gives us a close-up view, an in-depth, I'm actually in the room type view of what's happening here that you don't get in all the other Gospels. And so in John 13, we see how Jesus starts his last night here with his disciples. So if somebody would read, let's do chapter 13, verse 1 through 17.
Before the Passover festival, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Now when it was time for supper, the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray him. Am I reading the right thing?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Jesus knew that the Father had given everything into his hands, that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God. So he got up from supper, laid aside his outer clothing, took a towel, and tied it around himself. Next, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and to dry them with the towel tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who asked him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus answered him, what I'm doing you don't realize now, but afterward you will understand. You will never wash my feet, Peter said. Jesus replied, if I don't wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. One who is bathed, Jesus told him, doesn't need to wash anything except his feet, but he is completely clean. You are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. This is why he said, not all of you are clean. When Jesus had washed their feet and put on his outer clothing, he reclined again and said to them, do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are speaking rightly, since that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you also should do just as I have done for you. Truly I tell you, a servant is not greater than his master, and a messenger is not greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them.
And I want to go back to the very first five verses. After reading the whole thing, Jesus, of course, this is Jesus' teaching on leadership, which really has to do with serving. servant leadership, but the foundation of it all is the first 5 verses. So back in verse 1, it was just before the feast of Passover. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. And this is the part I want to emphasize. Jesus knew the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God. He was returning to God. So he got up from the meal. He took off his outer clothing. He wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. So you see, twice there, it speaks of the Father. In verse 1, he knew it was time for him to leave this world and return to the Father. He was going back to the Father. But in verse 3, you see the foundation of Jesus' humility. You see the foundation. You see the reason why he could humble himself. And so, what does it say? What do we see there? That it says Jesus knew what?
He had security.
Yeah. And specifically, yeah, he knew his Father because he was going back to his Father. He knew he'd come from the Father and he would return to the Father, right? And what does it say specifically in verse 3 that he knew?
Giving them all things.
Yeah, the Father put everything in his power, right? I mean, he knew this, and we read this, and when he was resurrected, he said, all authority is given to me in heaven and earth, right? Jesus had been given all authority, everything been put into his hands. He had this relationship, right, with the Father, and he understood where he was at. He was secure. He was grounded in his relationship with his Father. Okay? This is like the foundation of his. This is the reason. The only way you can humble yourself and serve people is because you're secure enough. Yeah, and the reason you don't humble yourself and serve people is because you're insecure. It's the whole thing. Jesus was completely secure. He knew he'd come from the Father. He was going back to the Father, and the Father had given everything into his hands. So, first thing is Jesus knew that the Father put all things under his power. And then it says something else. And he had come from God. So Jesus knew, second thing, Jesus knew he had come from God. And the third thing?
Yeah, he's going back to them.
He's coming back. He's going back to. He knew where he came from. He knew where he was going. He knew his identity. And so, what did he do?
He humbled himself.
Yeah.
To the servant.
Yeah, and the way I wrote that down was he took up the towel. It's just the consummate act of humbling yourself. And then later he gives the explanation, right? Which he usually does. He does things and then he tells his poor followers why he did them, right? So he said, let me explain to you what I did. It's interesting because he actually said, do you understand what I've done? And he didn't even wait for them to answer. It's like, okay, maybe we do, maybe we don't. You tell us, please. Okay, you call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because I am. But I'm your Lord and your teacher, and I've washed your feet. And you should do the same thing to others. Servant's no greater than his master, nor the messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. You're blessed if you do them. But how can you actually do them if you're not grounded in your Father, right? Grounded in the security. I know where I came from. I know where I'm going. I know he's given me all the things that I need. Everything's in my hands. I'm okay. I can do this. So, viewing authority. Jesus is talking about authority. He's talking about servant leadership. So I want to talk about leadership tonight, but of course we have to go to Philippians chapter 2 in order to talk about Jesus and his exaltation and what had to happen in order for him to be exalted. So Philippians chapter 2, can somebody read verse 1 through 11? Actually, why don't you read verse 3 through 11, somebody.
Do nothing out of rivalry or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourselves. Everyone should look out not only for his own interest, but for also the interest of others. Make your own attitude that of Christ Jesus, who existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be used for his own advantage. Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a slave, taking on the likeness of men, and when he had come as a man, in his external form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. For this reason, God highly exalted him and gave him a name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus every knee will bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father.
So there's no one exalted higher, there's no higher place than the place that Jesus is in right now. But the way he got to that place was by humbling himself, by emptying himself. And we're going to go into more detail on this too, probably, and I think that's also in the work, the Making of a Leader semester. We talk about this in depth, but this is called the emptying passage or the kenosis passage because the word, when it says Jesus emptied himself, the Greek word is kenosis. It literally means taking the bucket, pouring it out. It's just emptying everything out. It's like making yourself empty. So he made himself empty. It's interesting, and Paul starts there saying, in this version, it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Selfish ambition, it's me. You know, there's good ambition and bad ambition. It depends on your heart, right? It's all about the state of your heart. Most ambition that we see, it seems like, is negative, selfish ambition. You know, jockeying for position, trying to grab a place because position is more important to you. But he said, do nothing out of that attitude or vain conceit. Conceit, I'm thinking about some of you. Don't be focused on yourself, turn outward. How in the world do you do that? Have this mind in you that was in Christ Jesus. How do you even do that? That though he was in the form of God, he was in the very nature of God, he let that go and he emptied himself from wherever he's raised us up together with him. We are also to empty ourselves and to do that. But how in the world do you do it? Well, you do that when you know where you came from, you know where you're going, and you know he's giving you everything you need, right? And the Father and you have a relationship. So this whole idea of authority, and Jesus has given all authority. Authority has its roots in your understanding of the Father and your relationship with the Father. So what I want to do is I want to give you some notes actually that Philip Adams taught here one time. Many of you know Philip. He's a dear friend, but and most of you know him, I think. But he's a missionary, has been for many years in many places. France, which is not an easy place. Afghanistan, which is not an easy place. Burkina Faso, Niger, going to Ireland. He doesn't go any easy places. They just go hard places. But he has really great teaching on leadership. So I want to share some of that with you. And some of what he has here came from John Maxwell's Steps to Leadership. So you could look that up and get more information on that. There's like YouTube videos on this. If you just search John Maxwell and leadership, you'll get that. So, but it's interesting that when a poll was taken, I think it was 10,000 people in business, corporate world, and also in the church were polled, and the question was, what 3 words would you use to describe a great leader? What 3 words would you use to describe a great leader? So I want you to think about that and just, it's not rhetorical, you can throw some in.
Humble.
Humble, okay?
Teachable.
Teachable, a leader should be teachable, okay?
Wise.
Wise,
Patient.
patient, okay?
Quick to listen.
Listen, able to listen, okay? Good. Quick to listen.
Assertive.
What?
Assertive.
Assertive? Of course you would say that. Okay, good, assertive. In a wise, humble, quick listening way. Right.
Decisive as well.
Decisive.
Hand in
Yeah,
hand.
that's a good word.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Server.
Which also is connected to all of these things. You know, it's interesting because assertive and decisive is not negative, unless you take Christ out of it. You take God out of it, then it can be very negative. You know. I'm sorry.
Serving.
Serving. Yeah.
Courageous.
Courageous. A good leader is courageous. Go places where you don't usually go, or uncomfortable places. Yeah. What else?
Patient.
Patient. Yeah, I think that was said before.
Visionary.
Visionary. Okay. Can see where we need to go.
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable. Okay, good. Yeah, those are all really good. I want to give you the results of that this survey happened. I'm going to actually give you. This is kind of what we just talked about. Jesus is given the highest name, and he's given all authority because he humbled himself to the Father's will. So, this relationship with the Father and humbling yourself before the Father is a foundation for humility and hence leadership. The first one was trust. Okay. Number one. A good leader is someone I can trust. In other words, I can trust you because you will do what you say you'll do. Okay. Now this is just, all your answers were good. This is just the results of this Gallup poll, actually. Trust. I need to be able to trust you. A leader is someone who other people follow. They influence people. I'm only really going to follow you if I can trust you. Right? So that's the first one. The second one was compassion. Okay? Compassion. That means the way you understand and empathize with people. In other words, there's something about your leadership that has a humanity to it. Right? It's not just leadership. It's leadership with people. It's leadership with a heart. I need to have someone I know cares about me. They do what they say. I can trust them, and I think they actually consider me a person, and they care about me. That would be a good thing. Okay, the third thing is stability. Interesting, isn't it? Stability especially over a long period of time. Not just someone who you're a subordinate to, who has a position over you, but someone who's going to lead you, and you're going to follow and be faithful to, and work together with for a long period of time. I need stability.
You can trust them to be compassionate all the time.
Yeah, right. Stability in all of those things. Yeah, and in all the things you guys mentioned too. So, all right. So I can see the future, but I would say stability is like building a picture and building realization of what today needs to be as a stepping stone into the future. I think that might be part of stability too. Now I'll give you the fourth one too, even though they only asked for 3, but the top 4 answers were, the last one was hope. It's someone who builds a picture for tomorrow. So stability is, hey, we're good today, but hope is, hey, we got a picture for tomorrow. There's the visionary part. I can see where we're at. We're going to make today strong, but we're not going to stay here. We're going somewhere. So,
That's interesting.
go for it.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I think the hope, that really throws me a curveball. I mean, when you're asking all these people to say what a leader is.
Yeah.
When was that taken?
That was, no, I think it was like around 2010, something like that. 2012 maybe, something like that.
Yeah. And was it,
Of course, the economy was bad then. Could be that too. But the point, the idea of stability and hope is stability has to do with today. Hope has to do with tomorrow.
and whether you like it or not, what did Obama run on?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah. Hope.
hope,
Hope. Yeah.
hope and change.
Hope and change.
And, I mean, I'm just saying, and if that's what people are hungering.
Yeah.
And they voted for it, but.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like because we come from the West, hope is not high up on our list because it feels like our economy and, you know, we live in stability, so to speak. It seems like it. But if you come from a second, third world country or a war-torn country or whatever, hope would be number one or two probably on that list for almost everyone, you know? So I think, you probably look at that through different eyes depending on your background and, you know.
This is a survey of Americans, right?
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
There you go.
Yeah. I can see why hope, I'm saying I can see why hope would be on there.
Yeah, and stability and hope, I can see that, especially in third world countries or volatile situations.
Yep.
That would be huge, like probably, number one or number two for sure. Okay, so interesting. So this is why people now, of course, what is leadership? Leadership is just influence, okay? Everybody in here influences somebody. Everybody does. Doesn't matter. You got a family, you're influencing them. You got people around you that are at work, you're influencing them. You have a ministry, or you serve here somewhere, yeah, you're influencing. So, and influencing, so we think, okay, leaders are somebody else, besides me, right? But that's not true. We're all influencing people. Influence is for us all. And we're actually even called to influence. Different ways, you know, different strengths, different gifts, but influence. So, I want to talk about this bottom part of your notes here. There's these numbers that kind of go up the page there. Looking for your notes. Yeah. Yeah. So this is where John Maxwell's levels of leadership come into play. So down at the bottom, number one, I'll tell you what this says here. It says position and rights. This is position and rights. You could put rights in parentheses if you want to. But position, the bottom level of leadership is position. In other words, somebody sees something in you and you get a position. I mean, it could be a position as a clerk, a position as a servant in like a certain Sunday school. Somebody sees your willingness, your availability, or a gift mix in you, and they say, they're going to give you a chance. And you have a position. Okay, the position, like a title. Or if you're in the Army, it would be a rank, right? And you're going to start out where? At the bottom. You sure are. Private, right? Okay, here you are. You got to learn some things, and it's a learning experience. So it's an invitation to grow. So position is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, but this is not your goal. This is the bottom. This is like the foundation. This is entry level. Leadership 101. Position. But unfortunately, some people like grab a hold of that position and wrap their arms around it, and this is the thing that they get their identity in, they get their security from. This is what they want because it's who they are. Their position is who they are. And so you're given a title, you're given a position, and if I tie that position to rights here, rights, like I have rights that go along with this position, and my position means that I have a position you don't have, which means I can see myself as higher than you. I can devalue you as a person because I have this position and you don't have this position. And all that is coming out of this feeling of insecurity, this place of insecurity, right? So rights over responsibilities. If you stay in that level of position of leadership, level one of leadership. then you start getting involved in political maneuvering and like just the drama that happens in organizations between people who are involved. It's like we're not really, it's kind of us against them, me against you, and it's like, okay, if you're staying there on the bottom floor of influence, you're not actually doing it the right way. You're not going to where God wants you to go in leadership. So, second level is permission. Position to permission. And that has to do with relationships. And you start like growing out of this rights phase, maturing out of this rights or position or rank or title, and you come into the position where people begin to be important. And so you start listening, like you said, Aaron. You start listening to people. You start observing what's going on with people. You start learning more. There's the knowledge that you mentioned, Melissa. So you're learning, you're becoming aware. And followers give leaders permission to lead. That's what this means. I'm looking at you. I can see that you care about me, so I'm giving you permission to lead me. See what I mean? So it's not just that you have a position, like I have a position of pastor. I'm the pastor, therefore I have some kind of authority, whatever that is. And then, but I start caring for people. I'm relating to you. You feel like you're a person, right? So the idea is, or what John Maxwell says is, you can't lead people until you like people. I probably go a little farther and say you can't lead people until you love people. And that's really what he means. You can't really lead people till you love people, because when people feel love, they will follow. You see? If they feel like you're just pulling rank and they have to snap at attention and be the subordinate, they'll do what they have to do to a certain extent, but you're never going to really lead them very far. But if you make them feel cared for, or you make them feel included, or loved, or trusted, they start to work with you, and they give you permission. You see, so this is something I'm hanging on to and holding over your head. Position. Permission is something you're giving to me because you see me and I love you. You know I love you. You have some confidence in me. You're giving me some permission to lead. There's a trust level. Okay. So that's the second level. So the third level in leadership is production. And the R word is results. Okay, production. So the deal is, you can't, what got you to this level, or this level, won't take you further. So, because production is what is important in an organization and wherever God's given you a sphere of influence. And so, good leaders make things happen. Good leaders get results. Whatever you're supposed to be doing, how are you doing it? It's faithfulness. It's stewardship. It's making decisions day by day to be faithful to what you're called to do and doing it well. So, production. And what happens is you have self-discipline, you have work ethic, you have faithfulness, and you begin to work together with these people who are giving you permission to lead them, and you're producing results.
Is it like the works produced by faith?
Yeah, yeah. Works produced by faith. Yeah. In this case, maybe even faithfulness. Those two words are linked, and one word is used for faith and for faithfulness. It's the same word. Yeah. So, because the idea, if you're put in a position and God gives you some sphere of authority, is to do it well and to bring forth fruit, right? To bring forth fruit, more fruit, much fruit. Right? Okay, so there you go. You're not hanging on to your position. You're not squabbling over titles. You're starting to focus on people. You're building relationships. People see you care. They're giving you permission. Together, you're making things happen. You're getting things done. So there's results going on. Whatever your sphere is, you know. It could be anything. It could be worship. I think worship, because I did it for so long, it's like, okay, we got to do it. We got to do it with people. Okay, we're doing it with people in the band. We're doing it with the whole congregation. Right? There's a part of it that's just teaching. There's part of it that's modeling. Part of it is guiding. Part of it is who you are being, so that out of you comes, you know, out of you flows what's inside of you and your walk with Jesus. And, you know, so what's the results? What's the good results here? Like, okay, see, put you in position of worship leader. Well, that's a great privilege, but that's not what your goal is. You're working together with people. They see that you're a worshiper. They see that you're passionate about Scripture and about worship and about the presence of God. They see that you care about them. You're pouring into them. They're going to work with you. Suddenly, the worship level goes up in the congregation. The unity level on the worship team gets better. You know, so that's production. It's not production like we're producing like automobiles or widgets. It's production that we're doing our job and bringing forth fruit. The congregation's experiencing the presence of the Lord. So, fourth level is people development, reproduction. And this is where what got you to this point will not take you any further. You may be great at working with people, taking your position of authority, working with people to produce things. But unless you're multiplying yourself, reproduction, and developing people, then you can never go any farther than just your capability. You know, you can never go any higher than you. So, people are any organization's greatest asset, people. And so this is why Neil and I do this. This is why we do triads. This is why we work together with house church leaders to do house churches, because it's multiplying the grace of God in the congregation. This is what it's about, you know. What one man can build is finite. But if you're building into the body of Christ, where could that stop? It could never stop. It could go on and on, right? It could be a movement if you begin to step into people development. So I'm investing my time in people. I'm investing my energy in people. My resources in people, right? So the idea here is, and this is what Maxwell says, you know, when you get to this place, this level 4 leader, high level of leadership, all of these have influence, but this is a high level of leadership because you're spending like 80% of your time pouring into people, building people. 20% of the time doing the stuff yourself, but 80% of the time building people. So we're going to talk about that more in the second session. But the highest level that Maxwell has, and he actually calls it pinnacle. Phil Adams calls it personhood / pinnacle. Personhood. This is where people follow you because of who you are. Not your position, right? They're not following you because you're their boss. Or even that you care, or we're getting things done together. Now you're pouring into these people, and suddenly they respect you because of who you are. You know, and this takes a period of time to do this. You know, it's not something that you like, okay, I'm going to jump up to level 5, right? But what we're really talking about here is knowing, you know, understanding your position, understanding people. Production is doing. When you get up here, you're talking about being, right? Talking about your character. Not just what you can do or what you know, but who you are. And so who you are begins to influence people. Aaron, I don't know if you can remember the question you asked me last week or 2 weeks ago. When was it?
Last week, like at the end,
Yeah,
just you and me?
yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Why don't you say that?
I came up to you and asked you, I was thinking of a joke and I couldn't get one. Okay, I asked you what, I guess in regards to ministry, who are the people or person that portrayed a fatherly characteristic or character. Just and whether you knew them personally or not, or just had some time, but that it was a magnetic kind of thing.
Yeah, they influenced me.
Yeah,
Because of
they
that.
influenced you, but it wasn't because of their gift.
Yeah.
But it was not that they didn't have a gift. Obviously they do, but how do they use it in a fatherly way?
Yeah, yeah, good. So it's not their title or their gift, their function. It's not that. It's who they are.
Right.
And I started thinking about that. I thought last week about that, in general, some about that. Who are the people that really influenced me more by who they are, not by just what they do, you know? And I thought of a few of them. We'll talk about that later. But the people I'm thinking of are people who for example, really good teachers, but their teaching wasn't the thing that really impacted me the most. Their teaching did impact me, and it did help me grow. But their faithfulness, their love for Jesus, their love for the church, their love for their family, you know, the fact that I knew they're dependable, they're go-to people, they're count on. In fact, one person is Lynn Sisson, which some of you guys know, and Lynn is awesome. Lynn actually married Melissa and I, but Lynn was like the kind of guy, he's one of the first people that I realized, you know, it's not what this guy does, it's who this guy is. I mean, it was like a revelation to me. Over getting to know him, listening to him, you know, who he is really shaped me during a formative time in my life. You know, really, it's amazing. And you could probably think of that. You don't have to talk out loud about it, but that's a great thing to think about this week. You know, maybe somebody comes to your mind right now. Somebody who influences you not because of what they do, but it's who they are. It's like there's an X factor, right?
Yeah.
There's an X factor. It's okay, you know, they teach good, or I don't know, whatever they do it really well. They're led by the Spirit. It's amazing, but I don't know. It's just who this person has become gives me hope and gives me encouragement and sets a bar for me. I want to do that. Before I die, I would like to get there, you know?
Jack Wright.
Jack Wright. That's a good one. He's a good one, man. He's probably that for many people. Yeah. Who he is. I don't know do you remember him leading worship?
I don't. My
Okay,
wife
yeah,
does.
yeah. Right, so it's not real, that was his most visible role at Trinity, was leading worship, and you never even saw him in that role, but you're impacted by who he is. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a great thing to think about, because those people have gotten to a position where, have gotten to a place, a level of leadership where it's not just their position that affects you, right? And it's not even just that they care, although it's a huge part of it, because that's who they are. But it's way deeper. It's way deeper. It's the impartation of Jesus inside of them. It's the Jesus in them that makes a difference for you. Okay, so when I think about this, and I think about authority in the kingdom of God, and I think about being under authority, and I think about serving, coming up under. You know, the difference is, we've had this little diagram before too, right? Hierarchy is this way, and this is the way, like, I don't know, a large percentage, majority of churches on the earth operate like this. You know, corporations operate like this. It's not necessarily evil, okay? There has to be some kind of authority structure, it's okay. But when it becomes an issue of entitlement. The person at the top feels entitled, and they feel like they're better than you. And they, because when you're up here at the top, you get this, the temptation is to think I'm more than. I'm more than you. I have more of than you. I have more knowledge than you. I have more spirit. I have more experience. I'm more than you. That's just diabolical. When I'm thinking I am more than you, it's diabolical. I mean, in the literal sense of the word, it's of the devil. It's of the devil. You know, the devil said, I will exalt my throne above the Most High. You know, this is it. It's, you know, that whole thing. It's the opposite of Philippians 2. The devil, you know, Isaiah and Ezekiel passages about Lucifer, the devil did the opposite. I will exalt my throne. Jesus said, I'll humble myself. I'll pour myself out.
Yeah, when you're talking about corporations and churches, and some churches model, you know, that kind of corporate structure.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me if you're in a church and the culture, and and I think we've, you know, you're in your travels and stuff, you've probably found yourself where everyone's jockeying for position.
Yeah.
To me, if that's the case, that's the smell test, right? I mean, like, that's not good. I mean, if it really isn't clamoring to, if the youth pastor position is just seen as a stepping stone, right?
Stepping stone to,
To the associate pastor, to the whatever.
To the real pastor.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, if it's always that clamoring and that, then that is nothing of what Jesus modeled or even said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you,
Yeah, it's completely, yeah. In another place he said the Gentiles lorded over their people, but it's not so with you. You know, the one that's greatest among you will be the servant of all. Here's the measure of greatness. You're going to serve.
Yeah.
So it's not this, it's completely upside down. It's that I'm going to come up underneath you, even in whatever title or position I have, I'm coming up underneath you. Paul said that, and he said, okay, you want to be an apostle?
Yeah.
Here's what an apostle does. We're the offscouring of all things to this present time. What does that mean? Everybody mocks us and scoffs us. We're worthless. We have to put up with more stuff for more people. We're dealing with, you know, tragedies. We're dealing with dangers. We're dealing with problems with traveling, dealing with churches, dealing with people. It's not the kind of job you want, actually. Is that what you want? He's talking to these people who are grabbing a hold of these positions of what he calls super apostles, which is really a mockery. It was really, what he was doing was he was really mocking them. He said, okay, you super apostles, like
Super apostasy, apostles.
Yeah, almost. It really was apostasy. Yeah.
Well, I remember what Mark Freer said at Master Builders is if God calls you to be an apostle, it's all downhill after that. That's what he said, right?
Yeah, how he said, were you there for that session?
No, I wasn't.
Well, he said, your highest calling is that you are a child of the King.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's all downhill after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're an apostle,
Yeah. Yeah. It's the truth. It's the truth. That's it. Jesus, you know, that's what we started this whole thing off with, wasn't it? It was like, you know, Jesus was introduced not as the apostle and high priest of our salvation, or the prophet who Moses spoke about, or the teacher of all teachers, you know, the light of the world, or the great creator, or the judge of all. He wasn't. He was introduced as my son, and I love him, and I'm pleased with him. This is the highest calling, and it's out of that. You see, it's only out of that we can do any of this, right? Because if we don't have that, we're going to be stuck like right here. We're going to stuck at this first level of leadership, which is like, I'm just hanging on to my position, holding that position over you, holding you underneath me, and nobody's going to like me or follow me, basically, right? And if they have to follow me, they're not going to like it. They're going to wish they didn't have to. And job reviews are not going to be great. So, I mean, this is the way, but some people live there. Yeah. Out of this foundation of fatherhood, though, foundation of being understanding that Jesus came from the Father, going back to him, and the Father had given him all things, then he was able to do that. Okay. So we need to take a little bit of a break here. So what I want to do is kind of take that top level there and the fifth level of leadership and kind of catapult into our next session and talk about how living as a beloved child of our Father changes the way we view legacy. Okay, so, all right, let's take a break.